Lord, please bless this meeting and all that are gathered here this evening. Thank you for all the vitamin D that you've been sending our way for the last 2 or 3 months without any interruption. Hopefully we'll be seeing some rain soon. And please see that the commissioners here make wise decisions for the people of Canby. In your name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you all for coming out on this beautiful summer evening. First item on the agenda is citizen input on non-agenda items. Does anybody have anything they'd like to speak on that is not on our agenda? Okay. Then we will need to approve the minutes of July 9th commission meetings. Do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes from the July 9th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Brian, do we have any new business? Okay. Okay, we will now move into the public hearing portion of this, and the first item is the continued public hearing to consider a request for a minor land partition type 3 application to create a separate lot for the Molino Road Pump Station currently existing on an easement granted by the property owner. That would be MLP 18-03, City of Canby, Molino Road Pump Station /Wagant. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So the matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please fill out the public testimony card and give to the recording secretary. At the appropriate time, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and interest in the matter. For those people other than the applicants that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please sign in on the sheet or speak up when we call for testimony. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. You may be limited by time for your presentation. Generally, the applicant will have a total of 15 minutes to speak. The proponents will be given 5 minutes each. The opponents will be given 5 minutes each, and those thought to be neutral on the matter will be given 5 minutes each. The applicant will then have 10 minutes for rebuttal. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access and to become a part of the record. All written testimony received both for and against prior to the hearing shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained as indicated in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the applicable land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Everyone present is encouraged to testify, even if it is only to concur with previous testimony. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest to please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from hearing the present matter.
No.
Okay. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time.
I drive by the pump station frequently, or where it's going to be, or perhaps will be.
Okay. Does any member of the audience have any questions for any commissioner regarding conflict of interest or ex parte contact? The public hearing will be conducted as follows. First, Brian will give a staff report, and then there will be questions by us. And then the applicant will have not more than 15 minutes, proponents not more than 5 minutes each, opponents not more than 5 minutes each, those that are neutral not more than 5 minutes each, and then rebuttal, if necessary, by the applicant, not more than 10 minutes. I will then close public testimony, and then we will have questions by the hearing body. We will discuss and deliberate, and then a decision will be rendered. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure outlined for this hearing? Okay. Brian.
Thank you, Chair Savory. This is a continued public hearing on this particular matter, so I'm just going to go through it really briefly. The property in question is shown here in the triangle area with the 70-foot of frontage down at the far southeast corner being where the Malino pump station parcel was donated and is now constructed. This is kind of a blow-up of that bottom part, showing you again where the Malino pump station area, and there was a force main. Actually, I don't remember which it is. Maybe it's a gravity lane that's along 13th Avenue to serve the residential developments, Timber Park and such, and then a force main in an easement that was dedicated along the logging road trail that goes up here where you see the 15-foot utility easement. The only thing that was kind of unique about this particular one is the 3 conditions of approval that we discussed at the last meeting. We only had one written public input, and that was from Lisa Wygant, and she did provide testimony at the last meeting, and you have her concern about 2 of these 3 conditions. The first 2 apply to her parcel, parcel 1, parcel 2 being the small parcel that's where the Malino pump station is. And the third item on here is a condition of approval for your consideration that we call a non-remonstrance agreement that would apply to the city, the parcel to be a city-owned where the pump station is. And it all relates to the first 2 conditions of approval. One, to dedicate the required right-of-way that will eventually be needed if the property is ever developed. And since the city parcel is already developed, it seemed logical to make that requirement at this time. That is the only reason that staff proposed. We did not propose any improvements to be made on the large parcel that isn't proposed for development at this point. But because of the parcel 2 already being developed, we have no mechanism in the future to ever really obtain the necessary street improvements, right-of-way dedication, the normal utility easement that crosses that parcel. And so that's why it led to staff recommending, because under 1660.020 standards and criteria, the normal requirement is during a partition, the entire property that's being partitioned, you require improvements on both or all 3 parcels. Although we made it very clear, and I'll make it clear again today, that there's a provision under that criteria section that says, however, the commission can find that the nature of development in the vicinity of the partition makes installation of some improvements unreasonable, the commission shall accept those improvements. And I think there's an intent that goes on there as well, not only the improvements, but if you feel like delaying dedication of necessary right-of-way, as well as those necessary street frontage improvements, or the easement, which is what's talked about in the second condition here, is a normal 12-foot public utility easement that's adjacent to that right-of-way. This occurs in every development that we've had in our industrial park and every residential development in town as well. Malina Road, as you know, currently is a county-maintained road, so they have jurisdiction over it, and the county actually requires 8-foot utility easements adjacent to their roadways. But the city has always required 12 within the city limits when we're in charge of the approval process. So I'm not going to belabor the staff's recommendation to include all 3 of these conditions, but the applicant has made a strong case of postponing the right-of-way and the utility easement on her parcel. And if we were to do that, I think it would make sense to do that on the other parcel as well. When you file the partition plat of record, it doesn't make much sense to do just the 70-foot of frontage on that partition plat and not for the full frontage. Again, the reasoning why we suggested that in the first place. However, you might want to consider the third item, the non-remonstrance. Because the pump station is fully developed, this would basically be an agreement that we would draft, and it would be recorded in the county clerk's office associated with the partition plat that gets filed, that sometime in the future, whether it's 10 or 20 years, when there are improvements on the adjacent large tract, parcel 1, that will remain in Lisa's hands, that when those improvements, a development comes along, the improvements, the right-of-way is dedicated, et cetera, that at that time, the city will agree to put in the gap, the 70-foot of frontage on our parcel. And it's not something that we have to do by any means. If you trust that the city would step up and do their obligation when the adjacent property was developed and new street is constructed, that it would be obvious that here's a gap and that we need to put ours in. But the trouble is, you know how government entities work. You know, we don't necessarily budget in a fiscal year for certain improvements, and so there may be a time delay as to when the actual city would be able to step up and finish the paving and that kind of thing. And I don't know that a remonstrance agreement would make much difference, because if the city's going to do the right thing, it's just a matter of getting it in the adopted fiscal budget for them to be able to do that. So regardless, we still may have to wait a year or something for the city to take action because it's not in the budget yet. So that's all I have, and it is a public hearing. We continued it, so we do want to take any public testimony. Any questions you would have?
Questions? Okay. Somebody going to speak for the proponent? Nope. Oh, is that Buzz?
Yes, Buzz.
Okay, so Buzz and Lisa.
Yeah.
Mics are off.
Okay, so if you could push the little things there until they turn green.
Got to turn green.
Okay, you're ready
Okay.
to roll.
Yeah, hello again. I'm Lisa Wygant. I'm the owner of oh, I guess I should do my address, 24401 South Malino Road. I'm the owner of parcel 1 and parcel 2. I did do testimony 3 weeks ago. I wrote a letter. Some of you probably took that home, studied it, memorized it, know it by heart. But if you didn't, you're lucky, because I'm going to reiterate some of those points and some additional points that I think are very important and for your decision tonight. So, like I said, I had 3 weeks to think about it and to talk to outside sources for information. And I am even more clear now that I do not desire to dedicate public right-of-way or road right-of-way, I should say, and PUE at this time. And I don't think the conditions of approval should show that. 1 and 2, particularly number 3, the non-remonstrance, I have no problem with. Even if and when development occurs, that would then be the appropriate time, either through subdivision of land or a site and design review process that you have in place, but not right now. But even then, the problem still remaining is the fact that Malino Road is a county rural road that narrows dramatically due to the trestle underpass. Is everybody familiar with that trestle? And you know when you go down Malino, it just cuts in. It's notoriously dangerous, and it's been problematic for years. Trucks have gone down that road, mistakenly thought they could get under it and hit the trestle. Many times I've heard it, and damaged it. Or they sit there and go, how am I going to get under this? And then they get out and flatten the tires and make it by an inch. Or they back up all the way to township with their lights flashing and traffic being held up, and it's a mess. And in order to improve Malino Road, a substantial railroad bridge would be required to enlarge that underpass. Most likely the trestle will never be widened or elevated due to the expense and lack of funding. I don't see the city paying to improve that. I don't see the railroad people paying to improve that, or the county. It would be a very expensive process. So to have a 72-foot Malino Road going down into a very narrow trestle pass does not make any sense to me. Most likely the trestle will never be widened or elevated due to the expense and lack of funding. So my argument to you is the conditions for approval put upon my property for road right-of-way and public utility easement could be deemed pointless and overkill. If you make improvements in the fancy sidewalk, where is that sidewalks going? They're going to go right into a hillside, or you can walk into the pump station. But with the construction of Sequoia Parkway, it is more likely that Malino Road will someday be rerouted to align with Sequoia south of 13th, with the trestle and existing Malino Road remaining unimproved. So it could be that Malino Road would curve up the hill and connect to Sequoia and leave that trestle unimproved, or the Malino unimproved. We don't know that right now. Moving on, my family and I have been long supporters of the industrial park development. We were instrumental with all the improvements south of Township Road. We donated acres of land for the right-of-way and PUE needed to build Sequoia Parkway from Township to Southeast 13th Avenue, with a distance being just shy of half a mile. That is 173,552 square feet, or 4 acres. Additionally, 4¼ acres of my hazelnut orchard had to be removed or was compromised. So my orchard along Sequoia, They had to remove some trees, and the ones that remained are compromised because of all the utility vaults put inside the orchard side, and it's very hard to maneuver machinery around those to mow, level, or harvest. So I have lost income from those trees being removed and what I can't harvest at this point. And Brian mentioned the gravity sewer line that was put in 13th. That borders the other side of my property, and I am included in an AFD with that. So when that's developed, I have to pay the benefited cost back plus interest. The city contacted us in 2016 to secure land for the regional pump station, which is this document here. My property was the most feasible location for the facility that could provide wastewater services to all of the non-sewered southeast quadrant of the UGB. I was supportive, and I offered to donate the land to the city. My family and I also provided a considerable amount of land for PU easements to permit the immediate construction of the pump station. So that would be the force line going from the pump station along the back of my property, house property, and along the railway. It's not along the railroad or the pathway,
Your property, and then the scene finishes.
Correct. So it's on our property, it's not by the pathway, as Brian said, though. So that goes all the way to Sequoia, and that's another 24,700 square feet. In exchange, the city agreed to partition the property and separate the pump station site from our family farm. Excuse me. And we've had this farm since the early 20s. It's not like we're newbies here. It was my great-grandfather's purchase, and it's where my mom and dad raised us girls, and I live in the house now where I grew up. Construction of the Malino pump station was completed earlier this year and is currently in service, supporting the new residential growth in the area. I'm almost here. Over the years, there seems to be conflicting opinions on what specifically might be needed for Malino Road right-of-way. It is not in the capital improvement plans in the Canby's TSP. It is labeled an existing collector, but here again, with the issues of the narrow passage under the trestle, does the city really need 72 feet right-of-way on Malino? Unless they plan to go through with the expense of redoing the railway underpass to accommodate the width. There is no telling what the next planning document will classify Malino Road as. Additionally, improvement of Malino Road is not in the county's 20-year TSP or ultimate development plan. So lastly, the additional right-of-way and PU easement conditions put upon me and included in this minor land partition application are simply not consistent with the agreement negotiated with Rick Robinson, Jerry Nelson, and Kurt McLeod on the onset of the pump station project. So when we met and agreed for me to donate the land and the easement along with my family, there was no discussion of additional land that they were going to require of me. I guess that's all I have to say.
Any questions for Lisa?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, questions for me?
Lisa?
No.
Okay, so we're going to hear from you, Buzz.
You better try.
Okay, if you'll state your name and address, that'd be great.
Buzz Wygan, 1441 South Ivy, Unit 1201, just a mile from the farm. That's as far as I ever got. I think Lisa's covered most everything, but there's one thing that I'd like to bring out. Sequoia Parkway was built in phases, and I think it was 7 different phases as it was needed. And as it was needed, the landowner made arrangements and agreements and put it in writing, and everything was taken care of that way. So there was no misunderstanding if the council or commissioners or whoever to be moved on in different phases. So it was all written down. One of the first things when it started on our property was to allow American Steel a lot line adjustment so that their building would be able to be fit. So we moved the property line onto our property eastward so that they could have enough room. But what I want to stress is that most everything was done with an MOU, which is a, what is it, Lisa?
Mutual.
Memorandum of understanding.
Memorandum of understanding, there we are. So that when work started, there would be no disputes, everything would be carried on just the way it was written. And that seems to be the norm from the start with Burdens and Zimmer doing that, and others doing the same thing. So I think that should be carried on whenever there's an agreement written and notarized by the city. I think that agreement should be taken into consideration and done. There's a project there, let's do it, let's finish it. When other projects require a situation like that, then we'll handle it, we'll deal with it. But we don't need to do something now because we do not know what's going to happen. We don't know. I think I heard Brian say something about 10 to 20 years possibly before something happens. There are people, of course, businesses looking and at the property, but until we'll say the money's in the bank, it's not for sure. Nothing is for sure. Everything can be canceled tomorrow. We do appreciate the efforts and the work that the city is doing, and the council and the planning commission working towards the development of the industrial park. They are doing their best to bring it along, but until something is really necessary and know what we're going to do, I don't think it should be included right now. So let's honor that letter that was done in 2016 and take care of that business, and then we'll move on to something else whenever we get another problem or a situation that needs attention. I think that's it. Thank you. Any-
I have a question. So you're in favor of the project overall, correct?
Well, the
Project,
project's done.
Okay.
So
Yes.
this is just the partitioning from the one parcel from the other parcel. So from parcel 2 from parcel 1. So it's a minor land partition
Right. Okay.
without the 2 conditions.
there has been considerable acreage donated to the city, considerable. Half-mile of Sequoia from Township to 13th.
So you're asking us to not approve number 1 and number 2 on that?
Correct. Not at this time. I think there's too many unanswered questions on what Malina Road truly is going to be.
And is that in conflict with the letter that you have from the city?
Well, when we met to discuss the construction of the pump station, there was no mention of additional public right-of-way that I would have to give up. Now, if this would have came up, I might have reconsidered donating the land. I don't know that. But actually, 3 weeks ago, I was only notified of these conditions 4 days before the meeting. So I was a little taken aback that this was additional conditions of this minor land partition.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
You. Push. Sorry.
It's happened.
Happens to me all the time.
There is no development planned for parcel 1 or property down the line. There's nothing that, of course, if it was planned, you would hear about it. So,
Very much. Are there any other proponents who would like to speak on the matter? Are there any opponents that would like to speak on this matter? Is there anybody that is considered themselves neutral that would like to speak? So obviously no rebuttal, so there we have that. So I'm gonna have some discussion on this. What are your feelings on this?
So my feeling is that, I agree that we can ex-nay 1 and 2 because when we come back to do another subdivision or whatever the case is, that's going to be a condition approval at that time anyway. They've got an orchard there. There's no point, in dedicating roadways that aren't going to be developed for who knows how long.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we kind of delayed this is, it's unfortunate that the city did not partition this before they built, which would have been a normal action. And I think going after the fact and asking for things, if it's not written down ahead of time, I would side with the landowner.
My feelings exactly.
Andre?
I agree with Derek.
Sean?
Yeah, again, I mean, I think we're all kind of on the same page. It doesn't seem like a very warm thank you for the land donation to then require this extra stuff, and I understand why it came up, and totally makes sense from a city perspective why, but I think that we kind of need to look outside of that perspective and say what's the right thing to do, not what's, what would we normally do in every situation. They gave us land. Let's thank them by removing these two, I think.
All right.
Yeah, strike 1 and 2 and put the non-remonstrance agreement in,
I agree.
and that's good.
And I will entertain a motion to approve with the deletion of condition 1 and condition 2.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve MLP 18-03, City of Canby, Malino Road Pump Station / Wygant, striking condition of approval 1 and 2, and holding up condition of approval 3.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We will now consider a request for a subdivision type 3 application for a 23-lot subdivision on a 5-acre parcel located at South Teakwood Street and the eastern terminus of Southeast 10th Avenue for single-family residential homes. That's SUB 18-02 Cougar Run subdivision. I will reread this. The matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please fill out the public testimony card and give to the recording secretary. At the appropriate time, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and interest in the matter. For those people other than the applicant that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please sign in on the sheet or speak up when we call for testimony. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. You may be limited by time for your presentation. Generally, the applicant will have a total of 15 minutes to speak. The proponents will be given 5 minutes each. The opponents will be given 5 minutes each, and those thought to be neutral on the matter will be given 5 minutes each. The applicant will then have 10 minutes for a rebuttal. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access and to become a part of the record. All written testimony received both for and against prior to the hearing shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained as indicated in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the applicable land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Everyone present is encouraged to testify, even if it is only to concur with previous testimony. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from hearing the present matter. Okay. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had an ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Okay. Does any member of the audience have any questions for any commissioner regarding conflict of interest or ex parte contact? Okay. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. First, Brian will give his staff report, then any questions from us. Let's see. Got this all mixed up here, so applicant not more than 15 minutes, proponents not more than 5 minutes each, opponents not more than 5 minutes each, neutral not more than 5 minutes each, and rebuttal, if necessary, by the applicant not more than 10 minutes each. That time we'll close public testimony and then questions by us and discussion and deliberation. No additional testimony unless specifically allowed by the chair. The decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, Brian?
Thank you, Chair. This is a subdivision application that involves Canby School District property, which is this hatched area, which is 5 acres. On either side of it, to the west, we have the Feist Addition to the south, and then Timber Park is over here under construction to the east. And you have the middle school directly to the north. This is an indication of the, if you can see this line here is the 5-acre tract and how it fits in with the existing streets that were platted in Timber Park over here to the east coming in, and then to the west, the same streets coming into its border from this side. To the south in the Feist additions, you have Vine Street heading northward and hitting the property line. So as you can see, the design and the layout of the street pattern was pretty well set for this particular subdivision. And so, not that the civil engineer didn't have some tweaking that he needed to do to make sure that the curves and the alignments worked out for the proper siting of the lots on it, so that he could get the required lot sizes and such. But otherwise, it was a pretty straightforward subdivision. Certainly one of the easiest ones staff has seen come through in quite some time. The only two things that I can really think of that are a little bit unique in this is that because this hole, so to speak, was left in the development on both sides, each side had some emergency access turnarounds that were needed before the street was to be constructed to go through. So one of them, I don't even remember now whether it was on Southeast 10th or Southeast 10th Place, but on the 5-acre tract, there was actually a physical turnaround that was a temporary that was built on the property. Those obviously are intended to go away and are not needed once the through streets are constructed. And the same thing over on Timber Park. There are temporary turnarounds, I believe, on this side in the lots, the platted lots in Timber Park itself, that make them unbuildable until the through streets are developed. The fact that they're going through a subdivision approval at this time would tend to seem to me that there'll probably be some development before too long to make this subdivision happen. So that was discussed in the staff report. However, we forgot to list it as a condition of approval, so I'll suggest right now that just so everybody remembers in the process here, I'm trying to find where a condition, something to the effect, the city shall release the emergency access agreement recorded for Feist 6 and the Timber Park subdivisions upon installation of the public streets within this subdivision prior to or in conjunction with filing the plat of record. And so if we can add that to any possible approval of this subdivision, I think that would help us as we go through and check mark all of these things that are needed in these conditions. We won't forget that we need to do something to formally get rid of those, especially in Timber Park, where we need to make those lots usable again for houses. They had submitted this overall design, so when you look all the way from Teakwood Street, the dead ends here at the north, actually you can drive straight through the school property. It tells you not to go, it's not a through street, but you can see where the park was over abutting the overpass on Sequoia Parkway here, the logging road trail, and this one little parcel down here in the corner that did not participate in the entire annexation process and development process. But the rest of it's on its way towards a full development here before too long. And so Vine Street will also tap into the north here before too long. The only plat that hasn't really been worked on is Section 9, which is just adjacent for Feist Addition to the south. But the larger parcel on down to 13th Avenue is getting ready for construction now too. But it shows you again how it all fits in very logically. So based upon the submitted facts and findings in the report and the additional condition that I mentioned, we do recommend approval of this subdivision in accordance with the conditions that we've listed.
Plus the release of the... Okay.
Yeah, plus the release additional condition.
Any questions? And do we have a proponent? See one. You'll state your name and address, please.
Turn the mics back on.
And turn your mics on, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Pat Sissel, Sissel Engineering, 375 Portland Avenue, Gladstone.
I'm Scott. I'm Canby School District Board of Directors, so just here to answer any questions on behalf of that.
Brian, could we have the
Yep.
that last plan?
Is that what you wanted?
The aerial one, I think, would be a great place to start.
I don't know. I don't even remember an aerial.
That one.
That one, okay.
So this application is for a parcel owned by Canby School District, and it is not in the 13th Avenue Development Concept Plan, but it was in the corner of the Development Concept Plan. The property was already annexed into the city before the rest of the parcels along 13th Avenue came in, and because of that, it wasn't actually part of the Development Concept Plan. But as you can see, that this is the Development Concept Plan from back in, I think it was 2014, that we put together for this area. And we laid streets out for this entire area, including the school district property, to show how the entire area would be developed from Teakwood over to Sequoia. And with a few slight variations, this is how the plan is coming together. I just wanted to address, as far as the conditions of approval go, we have no issues with any of the conditions of approval, including the one that Brian just spoke to in the opening. So this development is adjacent to Feist Edition Phase 9. Let's see if this shows up. It won't show up, but Feist, I'd say probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, we brought Feist Edition Phases 7, 8, and 9 to you in one hearing. You approved them all. Phase 7 has been developed. Phase 8 is probably going to have a plat recorded within the next month. Phase 9 is just waiting on the school district property to develop, because they're sharing half of 10th, Southeast 10th Place. Half is on Ralph Netter's property. The southern half is on Ralph Netter's property, and the northern half is on the school district property. So they kind of need each other to move forward. Ralph's here tonight. He may want to speak about that, but the intent is likely that the two pieces of property probably get developed together, or at least simultaneously, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that because the utilities in that road are going to serve, that sewer line is going to serve Ralph's property and the school district property. The water main is going to serve both. The road's going to serve both. The only thing really unique about this subdivision, Brian, maybe you can jump to the site plan. So there are two lots in this application that are below 7,000 square feet. Lot 14, where the cursor is right now, and lot 18. Lot 14 is slightly over 6,200 square feet, and lot 18 is slightly under 6,200. The reason we have the plan this way, and I should say that the application meets the 7,000 square feet for all the other lots except for these two, and the code gives you the flexibility to allow a certain number of lots outside of the lot area standards. So one of the requirements is that the average lot size for all of the lots in the subdivision is over 7,000 square feet. It is, in this case, the average lot size is 7,243. Another requirement is that no lots will measure less than 6,000 square feet. And as I said, the smallest one here would be about 6177. And the final applicable criteria is that less than 10% of the lots will vary from the lot size standard. So we're varying 2 out of 23. So that's about 8.5%, 9%. So we meet all those criteria. And the reason why we have 2 lots smaller than 7,000 square feet is, it's surprising that the code gives you the flexibility to flex the minimum lot size for lots. It gives you the ability to flex the frontage required for lots, but it doesn't give you the ability to flex the lot width requirement. With the street pattern that was set up for Timber Park and Feist Addition, the roads are a little wider here, so lots 8, 9, 10, and 11 on the one side of the development, and 20, 21, 22, and 23 on the other side are a little bit deeper than most lots in this area. And so if you hold the 60-foot lot width, they take up more area than a lot with less depth would. When we originally laid this whole concept plan out for this whole area, we didn't catch that fact that the Planning Commission didn't have the ability. It's in the same section of code. It says minimum width and frontage, and it gives the Planning Commission the ability to flex the frontage, but not the width. So that was a little nuance to the code. So if you had the ability to flex the width of lots 8, 9, 10, and 11 by, let's say, 2 feet, instead of requiring them to be 60 feet wide, you could make them 58 feet. Then every lot in this subdivision could be 7,000 square feet. But that's not the case. So 2 lots are smaller than 7,000 square feet, but the buildable lot width on lot 14 is going to be 47 feet wide. Lots 8, 9, 10, and 11, the buildable width on those lots will be 46. So you could actually build a wider home on lot 14 than you could on the others. Lot 18 on the other side, you could also build a 46-foot wide home. Again, that's the same width as lots 8 through 11 and 20 through 23. So I guess what I'm saying is that just because those 2 lots are a little smaller, they're going to look like all the other homes in the neighborhood. The only 2 lots that you could really build substantially wider homes on than the rest are 13 and 17 because they're interior lots. They don't have a street side setback, which is 15 feet. An interior setback is 7 feet. So I think lots 14 and 18, the homes on them will be very similar to the other homes in the development. I just wanted to explain to you why we ended up with 2 lots that are a little bit different. I did the calculations on the impervious area requirement for those. On lot 14, well, for the R1 zone, you can have 60% of the lot be impervious area. So you could have a 40 by 46 foot home with about 3,000 square feet of lot area, a 20 foot by 30 foot patio, a substantial side a regular sized driveway and the sidewalk on the front of the lot, and you still won't get up to 60%. So there's these lots are plenty buildable. And I should point out that in the Timber Park subdivision, just off to the east, where you see lots 90, 91, that's the R1.5 zone. And in the R1.5 zone, the lots can be as narrow as 40 feet. So this subdivision kind of makes the transition from the R1 to the R1.5. And I don't think having 2 lots be slightly narrower or slightly smaller will be out of place at all. That's all I have. Scott is here on behalf of the school district.
Yeah, thank you. On behalf of the school board, thanks for hearing us tonight. So this property really is excess property for the school district because of what's gone on in the last few years out in that area. It no longer makes sense to be held by the school district. And so the board thinks this might be an opportunity for the district to sell or somehow in the future. The board has not made any decisions on what they will do in the future, but platting it now gives us options to do something in the future. So that's basically the gist of it. I know it's odd for a school district to plat a subdivision, but strategically this just gives us more options. And I think if this is approved, the board probably will take some action here in the next few months on further decisions with the property.
Any questions?
No.
I actually have a question. So this commission has approved numerous subdivisions and housing projects over the last several years, a lot of which the two of you have been participants in one form or another. I've always had a concern about, because they're just not going to be just adults that move in there, there's going to be kids. So now we're talking about the school district giving up some land that you may need in the future for another middle school or something of that purpose, for that purpose. Have you given that any consideration?
Yeah.
I mean, what's your thinking on that? What's the school board's thinking on
Yeah,
that?
I think that the property, again, is viewed as something that probably is not lend itself well to future school development. We do have other land, excess land between Trost and Baker Prairie that could possibly be a future school site in that area. And so really the board, I think what they will do is they will, if this does sell, the money will be put aside for future use for purchasing other property that may be needed in the future.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Are there any other, is there anybody else who would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anybody that would like to be recognized as an opponent? Somebody that would like to be neutral on the matter? Okay, hence no rebuttal. So we'll close the public testimony on this. And you have any thoughts on this?
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah. Eric?
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to consider the request for a subdivision type 3 application for a 23 lot subdivision on 5-acre parcel located at South Teakwood Street and eastern terminus of Southeast 10th Avenue for single-family residential homes, SUB 18-02, Cougar Run subdivision.
Mr. Chair, I recommend we approve this project as laid out to us with the condition of approval that was been stated. Let's see, SUB 18-02, Cougar Run subdivision.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Next, we will be postponing to the August 27th, 2018.
So, Chair, if I could, I had a discussion with the applicant today, and they're going to need more time to make the corrections that staff had requested before it comes before public hearing. Therefore, they're requesting a postponement to September 24th at this time, which would be the date certain. The reason we say date certain is that it does give us the option of letting everyone know that has an interest in this application now without having to mail notices to everyone. We may choose to do that, but it's nice to not have to do that.
Okay. Then that doesn't mean we don't have to take any action on
Well,
that.
you do need to take the official action to postpone the public hearing on this item, since it was noticed for tonight, to a date certain of September 24th, 2018.
Then I will entertain a
Miss-
motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we postpone SUB 18-03 Pine Place subdivision until September 24th, 2018.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I might just mention that our intent by putting the actual date on the agenda was to facilitate people knowing when it was going to be postponed. I didn't anticipate today's change in date.
Okay. All righty. And that seems to have cleared the room. So it says here, final decisions, none.
So that's just a leftover from a previous agenda. We really do have two, and you
That's what I thought.
have them in front of
Yeah.
you.
So I will entertain a motion to have final decision on MLP 18-03, City of Canby, Molino Road Pump Station /Wygan, with the proviso that the first two conditions were struck and the third one approved.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the final decisions on MLP 18-03, City of Canby, Molino Road Pump Station /Wygant, striking condition of approval 1 and 2, and holding condition of approval number 3.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then I will entertain a motion for a final decision on SUB 18-02, Cougar Run subdivision.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we move to approve SUB 18-02 Cougar Run subdivision.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I will make, for a record, we are going to amend that additional release of the emergency access in the findings as well.
Thank you. So it says, items of interest from you, Brian, is the next regularly scheduled meeting is Monday, August 27th, but in lieu of the postponement of SUB 18-03 Pine Place subdivision, is that still, are we still?
Yes, we do have a 90-lot subdivision on that agenda called River Park. It's on the west side of South Ivy Street, where the roundabout was indicated.
Well, I sure like you guys a whole lot, but I'm going to be absent during that meeting. I will be on vacation.
As I recall, that's going to be a jam-packed meeting here. You know, I'm pretty sure. How can you afford to really miss all the excitement?
I will be in tears missing it, I'm sure.
No.
But I will be on vacation with my family, and I like them a little bit more than I like you guys.
Oh,
We're pretty lovable.
It's true.
Okay.
So I will continue on. So that's for the August 27th meeting. For the September 10th meeting, we have 5 public hearings.
I think I'm going to go on
And
vacation.
some are very
I'm going to adjust
controversial.
my vacation.
Some are very controversial.
And one of the reasons that we didn't try to spread them out is we have the 120-day rule that is required, and some other issues with a couple of the public hearings. The first 2 are the Canby Townhome project, where the rezoning issue came up. And so we're handling that, just for your information, and splitting the rezoning as a separate hearing from the development applications. And so you're going to hear one right after the other. And then we get into 2 annexations, North Pine Street, Cutsforth up at 99E and Territorial is the other annexation. And then we have the Marquise Memory Care expansion. I think that's the 5.
99E and Territorial, now
The north side,
the north side.
there's 2 empty county lots that butt up against the highway there.
Is that where they just recently had the the police activity where they were chasing the RV all over the place.
I know about the crashed police car, but I don't know where that happened.
I think that's where it happened, so, yeah. Okay. Then we're gonna have a busy night, so are you ordering in pizza?
Yeah, we need to do something. I think it's something that will keep us awake, probably.
Instead of water, we better have coffee.
I was going to say,
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully Lane will bring a couple extra bottles of water.
just bring a big pot of coffee.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, are there anything else, Brian?
Nope, that's it.
Anything from us to relay to Brian? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or adjourn.